to the Hoe-busters podcast, y'all. I'm your host, Darie Michelle, and today we have a beautiful guest named Cree. And Cree is the upcoming podcast host of Cree Speaks, and I'm going to make sure we share all this information with y'all and learn more about what she's working on. But she is here to chop it up with us today, share some of her life experience with us, and we're going to find out what it's like overcoming some of life's difficulties and challenges, healing, and working to rebuild ourselves because we know how life be life in y'all, right? So I'm so happy to have her joining us today, and I'm looking forward to conversing with her and just getting some new insights that I believe will help those of us who need a little bit of encouragement, maybe some motivation, maybe a few laughs, because we be cutting up, all right? And we're gonna and we're gonna have some fun as we talk about this journey on bettering ourselves and improving our lives, all right? So let's go ahead and dive in. Miss Cree, how are you doing, baby?
I'm good. And Darie, thank you for having me on. I'm so excited. You know, your energy is palpable. So this is like great. We have a good time when we get together. And yeah, we're going to cut up too. Yes, we do. We're going to get all the good stuff, but we're going to cut up too. Have a good time.
Absolutely. Cree is definitely one of my new homegirls or cousins in my head. It's just a good vibe. I love it. You know, I like to start off the show by asking a little icebreaker. My favorite one is this. Tell us who's the most famous person you ever met and the story of how you met them. Because these be some good stories, y'all.
Oh, God. Okay. I have a good one. 8th grade. Me and my best friend, we went to BB King's in South Carolina. At that time, I was living in Maryland. And we went to a Maya concert. This was my first concert, right? I don't know if it was Camille's, but it was mine, right? So we go to the concert. This is our concert by ourselves. Apparently, it was crazy back then because imagine kids going to a concert by themselves now, 7th, 8th grade. Wow.
I was just having this conversation with somebody this past weekend. Oh, they were real trusting of us.
They were real.
I was like 11, 12 years old. Yeah.
No, they were very, and add that I was in a whole nother state. Okay.
Oh, so yeah.
It was like wild. But anyway, so we go to this Maya concert. I was excited, whatever. So I like find my way up to the stage. Like I was really small, right? So I'm like squeezing in people because it's one of those stand only sort of situations. I find my way to the front, right? So Maya at that time was doing a Take Me There or about to start it. And she wanted people to come on the stage. So I'm like, you know, putting my little hand up, whatever. So she calls me. She says that I can come on stage and I'm trying to get up. But the security in the front was like trying to push me down. I'm like, no, she said I can get up there, right? Now that I think about it, I was really bold for a 7th, 8th grader. But anyway, so I come up on the stage. She's like, yeah, come up on the stage, whatever. So I'm doing my little thing. Take me there. Yeah. I want to go there. Right? So cool, right? So after that, she went to her tour bus, like after her whole concert, whatever. So me and my best friend, again, a groupie, right? Like, I'm like, let's go to where they're doing, you know, like where her tour bus is. Maybe we can catch a glimpse, whatever. Now, mind you, I was not even a Maya fan like that, okay? But, like, I'm in the energy. The energy just, you know, it just captivates me, right? So she sees us or whatever, and she, like, tells her tour people, like, oh, yeah, like, get them, like, to come on the tour bus. Again, wow. Yeah. Why were these 8th graders going on this tour bus by ourselves, right? Okay, yeah. We get on the tour bus or whatever. Okay. And now Maya, she has a beautiful spirit. Like I remember even at that age, like thinking like, wow, she's so soft spoken, but like beautiful and pure, like had a beautiful spirit. Girl, she was like asking me questions. I could not talk. She was like, would you like some Dr. Pepper or whatever soda she offered me? And like, I was like, like I was like dry heaving, like, you know, I'm like, I'm your number one fan.
Right.
I wasn't. But I was so excited that like I just couldn't even talk. Like I was just doing the most. And like I said, I'm not someone who's big into the celebrityhood, even as a kid, but I'm gonna be a groupie when I can be a groupie. And so that's my story.
Listen, I'm not mad at it. That is so cute. I love Maya. That's a good story. I love that one. See, it's like everybody's got a story now. Okay. Yes. We got all kinds of stories. We all share these experiences. And I just love hearing about it. On one episode I did not too long ago, bonus episode, the guy ran into Kanye West. And he was.
I'll be a groupie again. I don't know.
Kanye actually gave me a hug, man. I'm like, what? Oh my God! So I thought that was just so funny. But I love you. But thank you for sharing that story with us.
Yeah, I would have been a groupie for Kanye too. I love Kanye. He's like, but the Kanye, you know, Kanye. It's a love and it's
I still listen to College Dropout and all the old stuff all the time, like. Man, just
Classic.
good music's good music.
Good music
Listen,
is good
I'm
music,
not mad.
and Donda, you know, it's really hard to lose someone who's so close to you, but someone who was just like that core to, like, you know, keep you in check, was your center. I can't even imagine that. And you know,
I really can't. Did you watch
I
the
think of,
special on Netflix some time back?
I couldn't, because like when I tell you I loved Kanye, his music, his brilliance, and I shouldn't say
Yeah,
loved in past tense. Like, I
I
love
know,
him. I
right?
still send him love, you know. But it's really
Yeah,
hard to see, right? Like, you know, maybe I couldn't have met Kanye. You don't want to like meet your people you look up to, right?
I
But
get it.
I also understand that he's dealt a lot.
With a lot, yeah,
Yeah,
it definitely showed
he's dealt a
me
blow.
just how different he was, and for me, I just had more compassion for him after watching that.
Yeah,
Like, oh my god, like, and to see the footage, and I love that he had the foresight to say, "Let me have somebody recording me
yeah.
from the beginning of this."
Uh,
From the beginning, like,
but
I was
that's
like, "That's a shit,"
but that speaks
because
to his, like, he, like, Kanye, he's brilliant, and I hold
yeah,
compassion for him without watching it. And so,
hmm
you know, I probably should, but it probably would break my heart in ways that I'm not ready
it probably
for.
will.
But
Yeah, it probably will.
he, like, that's what, like, we all should adopt. Like, there's some things in terms of, like, you don't act where you are, you act where you're
Yeah,
going, right? Like,
going
he already
absolutely.
knew. He
Yeah,
knew, and in a way that no one else could see. And probably other people, not even probably, because he's rapped about it, other people were trying to, like, nah, Kanye, stay in your place, or
just stay in
whatever,
the
whatever.
producer lane. Yeah.
And so, like, I love that. Like, he knew where he was going. So he didn't act at the Kanye at whatever level the world perceived him as, right? Like,
Yeah.
he acted in the brilliance and the magnificence of who he knew he was. So, like, that is just, yeah. I props to Kanye.
All right, Miss Cree. Well, we're going to start getting into some of the good stuff now. So tell some of our listeners and our watchers about your geographic journey, just kind of where you've been, where you are, maybe where you hope to be.
Okay. So, like, it's so wild that you asked me that, because, like, I always feel like I don't have a home, right? Like, I just feel
Really?
like the world is my home. Like, I don't have
Okay.
like a draw to any particular place, right? So,
Okay.
and maybe it's because, right, I've lived in a few different places in my life. Born in Queens,
Okay.
Jamaica, Queens. Cool, cool. What up? What up? Lived in Jamaica, Queens until I was about 8. At 8, we moved, me, my grandmother, my brother, and my little cousin. We moved to Maryland. Okay. What up? What up?
Okay.
Only Maryland. And that was like a big adjustment, because we went from like living in a black like down for the cause space, and I went
Yeah.
to a school that, you know, our song that we would sing every morning was Lift Every Voice, to then going to a very white space, suburban space, right?
Okay.
And so that was like very different. So I lived
Yeah.
in Maryland from about 4th grade. I went like May of my 3rd grade year, 4th grade all the way up until the ending of my 10th grade year. Then from
Okay.
there I moved to Maryland, to Ohio, and
Oh,
that
wow.
I
Okay.
spent a year there, my 11th grade year. Then I moved to New York, came back to Long Island to live with my father's side of the family. So in Ohio, I then lived with my mom. Then I came to live with my father's side of the family for my 12th grade year. And then from there,
Okay.
I went to college, upstate New York. Then I was there for, you know, the time, and then came back down. And I lived in Long Island until, you know, I got myself together, you know, mid 20s. I then lived in the Bronx, and then I lived in the Bronx
Ooh.
until about 30, and then I moved to Mount Vernon.
Okay. Any place you dream of living or being, maybe in the future?
Oh, child, like, I want to pack up and go, but I don't know where I would go. But it would need to be
Really?
a black country, right? Like, it in the Caribbean somewhere, you know, like, you know, that's just black dominant, or in Africa. I
Mm-hmm.
would really love to move to Africa somewhere, if I really understood, like, you know, how to, like, you know, where to go, how to set
Yeah.
myself up, and all the things.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there's beauty in that. But United States, though, is a no for me. Anywhere that's not black.
Listen, I can't disagree. I feel almost exactly how you feel. I have a
Yeah.
guest who I've been working with, who's going to come on the show in a few weeks from Pretoria, South Africa, and she's
Oh,
awesome. And the things like me and her, we've had these conversations. I'm like, oh my God, you're making me consider this. More and more. It just sounds amazing. She's like, if y'all take y'all money, come here, y'all can live so good. And I'm like, I know we can because we're paying $2,500 a month for rent
It
for two
doesn't make
bedroom
any
apartments.
sense. But
It
South
don't make no
Africa,
sense at all.
South Africa, Cape Town, been to, beautiful.
Yeah.
Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful place.
Nice.
I love to venture out to more places in Africa. I would love to go to Tanzania. I just so many places I want to go. So
I'm ready to just get one stamp in my passport, okay? We're working on it. I finally got the passport after
let's
all these years. And
where
I'm
we
like,
out to?
listen, we got to do something. I need to go explore and see this world because I've been cooped up here
Yes.
between Connecticut and North Carolina, and I'm tired. Okay,
I know you tired. Let's go somewhere, baby. Oh, I love it.
Let's play.
The
I've got friends who
travel.
are ready to take a trip. Like if we can get somebody to plan it, just that's a lot of the work right there,
Oh,
right?
I'm not a planner. I'm a get up there and have a good time. Timer.
I'm usually the one to
That's
plan,
me.
but that's different because I don't know anything about like anything international. So I'm like, we might have to get agency or somebody from there help us out. Something.
You know, it's interesting because when I went to South Africa, that was a solo trip by myself. And by the way, I was 6 months pregnant when I went there. But that wasn't,
Wow.
I had booked it before I ever, like a month before I found out I was pregnant. So that was a whole thing. And I wasn't about to lose my money
we
either.
still going.
I'm like, girl, we gotta figure this out. And
baby, been across seas already. Don't even know.
But yeah, you're right. We gotta move, baby. But it was like I and not being a planner, I planned that whole trip. Like I was on TripAdvisor. I was like doing little things like, you know, the key things of what to do when you're out there, or like, you know, not even the key things, because I really wanted to have a very cultured experience. You know, be with the people, you know. But yeah, like I planned it. So I say all that to say sometimes we can do the thing. We don't need a little agency, but sometimes we want to live the soft life and let's get an agency. So depending on what we want to do,
we're gonna have to put this in the works. That's for sure. We're gonna talk about this again.
And sometimes just to get in the bag and going somewhere, right? Like there's beauty, like, you know, beauty and joy and fun in that. I'm in that space. I just want to go and have some fun. That's all I want to do.
Now I have the freedom to do that. So now I'm like, listen, anything's game, okay? Like let's go, let's have fun, let's see it all, let's do it all, okay?
Love it. I love it. So when you're ready, I'm ready.
Look, I'm gonna hold you to it. So I want you to tell the guests about your podcast and what you're working on. We can even talk about how we link.
This is also really scary, but also really beautiful, because even for myself, you know, the space of where, you know, it's where you're supposed to be, but you also were resisting it for so long. But now that you're there, you're like, oh, you're scared, but you're like, this is where I'm supposed to be. It feels home, right? Like,
okay.
So that's the space where I'm at. So a little about me is that, so I am an educator. Like I worked in Bronx schools for a decade plus as a history teacher, special education. I've taught every subject in grade 6 through 12. But mostly history is what I'm most passionate about. But I have found now, and it's funny how it came up. It came up like 4 years ago. I had went to go see this psychic medium, and I don't know if I really believed in it at the time, and it was just something for me to do. But no, the gifts are real. Spiritual gifts, when a person has it, it's real. So I she was doing some free reading through the library or whatever, like 10-minute reading per person or whatever. So I was like, why not? Whatever. She was so good in that 10-minute reading. Like she told me things that it was wild. Like wild. Like my first minute on with her, like I started crying. Like it was wild. So from that, I booked a reading with her, like a personal reading. And that personal reading, which is also wild, she told me something would happen transformative either 12 months or 12 years, because 12 was a significant number for me. And do you know, to that day, almost definitely to the hour, almost to the minute, that my daughter was born, that next year, the same day.
Wow.
Almost to the hour. I mean, almost to the minute. In that reading, she told me that like I'm meant to be public facing. She was like, whatever you're doing, like this isn't, you know, it. And I'm like, no, because I'm meant to change systems. I was a revolutionary at that time, you know what I mean? And I'm a revolutionary now, but in a different way. But I was really like, what we gonna do, right? Like I was ready to tussle and all the things. So I'm like, no. I'm like, that's not what I'm meant to do. And she's like, no, you're meant to speak and like be public facing, like you have things to change the narrative and raise collective consciousness and all these things. And I was so resistant, like, no, tell me about these systems I'm about to disrupt and topple over. Like it was just, it was a very different place from where I sit now. I look at it now and it's like, I've actually really stepped into my spiritual gifting, like, and something that I wouldn't have understood 4 years ago. Like, a lot of things have happened, dark nights and of the soul and so forth. So I'm here later to now understand, like, wow, right? Like the magnificence of it all. And so I say all that to say, Cree Speaks is born out of all of that. But it was also, I guess, prophesized to me 4 years before, where I was like, no. But now I'm stepping in that space. It's a challenging space because I'm not someone who, I am big on social media. My friends will tell you, half the time I don't answer a text message. Okay. Like, that's just not the life that I live. I don't like, I'm just not here with it. Right. I'm a very personable person. Like, I love like one-on-ones and all those things, or in friend groups, but like really to be out here and doing even this podcast, like this is a lot for me, right? Like it's a lot.
So step
like,
out our comfort zone sometimes.
Stepping out of our comfort zone to do what I have been given to do. So stay tuned, because like I said, social media is not my thing, but I'm now on social media platforms. I'm getting some things cooking up on there, but also trying to figure out, like, because the learning curve is steep for me with technology in general. Yeah, I'm trying to work with all of that, so bear with me, but I am launching and doing all of that. So yeah, that's the space I'm in. Did I answer the question, girl? Because I'll be talking.
Yes, you sure did.
Yes, and actually remind me of a part that like I needed to say, right? That in being a teacher within like institutionalized settings, right? Like formalized settings, I now understand that I needed to do that to understand that I'm a teacher in the larger sense, right? Like, I would have rebuffed this calling, like, no, right? But that was preparation for me to be here, right? And everything is all in its time, right? And nothing before its time. It's just a beautiful space that I'm in to lean on that and have that background to help solidify me and, like, build that confidence and knowing of, like, no, this is the teaching that you're supposed to do.
Absolutely. Because you're currently in school, right?
I am. I'm getting my PhD, girl.
Listen, how you skip over that? Tell the people.
I don't know how I do the things I do. So I'm getting my PhD. It's a really interesting time. I'll actually speak a little bit about that because, like, I'm going to start looking for anyone who's willing to share their stories. Let me back up. So, as a teacher, I've often heard, from my colleagues that apple trees make apples whenever they meet the parents of the students that they feel are disengaged, right? And the parents then, like, mirror that and they're like, well, you see, apple trees make apples, right? But, like, I felt like that was a very simplified explanation for something that I felt was very nuanced, very multifaceted, and very complex, right? And so that, like, I started thinking about, especially based off of, like, what I'm studying in my PhD program, I started thinking about all the ways that Black people sacrificed to learn, right? We know all the things that they did during enslavement, to read, to, they sacrificed their lives. They were brutally beat, right? Like, the violence they endured to try and learn, right? Then I think about, right, like, Reconstruction after enslavement that period was over, how Black people were literally double taxed. They were paying for white people to go to school, and they had to pay for their own schools, right? They were building their own schools. They were doing all of that stuff just so that their kids could be educated. And so they made a lot of self-sacrifice then too. And so then I thought about, right, like, just the epistemic violence behind all of that, the dehumanization, the inequities, all the things, right? And then segregated schools, right? Like, so that's all segregated schools going through all of that, right? And then bringing us up into integration, where then they fought, right, to be in these integrated spaces. But when they got there, right, like the just the psychological and spiritual violence they further endured, and like how they just like were fighting for all of that, right? So I was really curious about, at what part of the educational journey did Black people, right, like their relationship to education and like the fight sort of shift? And I'm speaking in very generalized terms. I know that, Black people absolutely do care about education. So this is not to say that we don't, but like, I can't ignore what I do also see, right, in the school setting. how there is some disengagement, and that's the place where I want to know why, right? And
Right.
so that made me think about, right, like what sort of messages have been translated from generation to generation, right? So the educational legacies of Black people, right? Like, you know, based on these different pivotal time periods, how that would affect the perception that a Black student would have in learning spaces, right? And how they would navigate that, and maybe what adaptive mechanisms that they would have to then, right, you know, take on to help them navigate these really violent spaces then and now, right? Like it's just violence in a different way. And so that's what my research looks to uncover, understand, but through the vehicle of storytelling, which is like a lean on ancestral wisdom, like knowledge traditions that have traditionally and historically been ignored, denied, right? Like we were very much embodied in our learning experience, pre-colonialism, and then now, right, in this time and space, right? I'm seeking a constant, conscious engagement with our ancestral knowledge tradition, specifically through storytelling, to see how these stories, right, what they can reveal about, like, you know, our experiences, in order to use that to, you know, be a healing balm, but also to change educational paradigms. So that was a lot. I don't even know if that makes sense, but
it does. Yes.
I'm working it out. It's a work in progress, right? It's a work in progress. So if anyone is interested,
and I think we do need to take time. I didn't mean to cut you off, but
no,
I think that's
please.
a really awesome topic for you to spend time to research, because there really has been a huge disconnect, especially in these last maybe couple decades, with Black people in education. I mean, I think these younger generation, what we call them, like the microwave generation, where they expect to just put in little effort and boom, we pop out with everything we imagine, everything we want, because we see the social media, the influencers. We see, oh, this person blew up and now they're famous and they're making millions and they're traveling, but they don't understand, like, there's so much more that we're capable of doing, so much more we need to be doing. But it concerns me because we're the ones suffering. They're public schools, they're cutting funding. Every time we turn around, we've got a lot of changes getting ready to happen come next year. It's concerning. It's hell.
So I have a few things to say. I think that young people today are not taking the things that we took and felt like we had to take, right? I think they realize that the system is a system that is built on that dispossesses, right? That is not, they don't find value in it, right? They don't find relevance. And I don't blame them, to be quite honest. Like I work in the school system, and yet, and still, like, I'm the biggest opponent of the school system. They realize, like, this is not even relevant to us. This is not teaching us the things that matter, that it's not even culturally connecting with us. And I'm specifically speaking about Black students. If we think about these educational spaces, right, they're really steeped in white supremacist ideologies, whether it's the curriculum, whether it's the structure, whether it's the policies, whatever. I think that they are more vocal, right? Whether it's through verbalizing or through their actions, right? They're more expressive. That's the word I should use, about, like, their discontentment, their disengagement, how the system isn't. I get that. And I think, you know, that's why where my research lives, and seeing, well, what does it look like where we can create these systems for ourselves, where we can, you know, recognize learning as a very embodied experience, because, like, there is a disconnection with us and learning and education. And I say all that to say, I also think that it's very strange that we send our children to schools to be taught by the same people who benefit from their oppression. When we think about, like, who are the educators in school, it's over 70-something% women, white women, right? But it's largely dominated by white people, and the system itself is Eurocentric. It is built on whiteness. And so we, despite all the many reasons that we have, both through learning from other people, but our own lived experience, very real lived experiences, we still trust our most precious gifts to be educated in a system that is built on their oppression. And so I think there's something to be said for that as well.
So let me tell you. So my last episode I just put out, recorded when I went to Connecticut for my 20-year high school reunion. I grew up in a predominantly white. Oh, yeah. Yes, ma'am. So I went to predominantly white schools most of my life in West Hartford, Connecticut. And so when I graduated, I don't think it was about a dozen Black kids in a class of 300. And so I thought would be nice to take a couple of my Black friends, like three girls who I graduated with, and one of my cousins who actually graduated from the same high school 4 years prior, and just get us in the room and let's talk about our experience. And so it was very interesting, the response I got from that episode. One of the questions I asked at the end is, do you think that we need to have our kids in these white schools? And this is looking at our experiences. So many of us, they're working in hospitals, they're working in operating rooms, they have great jobs. We have, I'm working in IT, like I have a pretty good job. We are exposed to different things. We're exposed to a different lifestyle. We did fencing and lacrosse and tennis in the gym. We had
that was mine
facilities
too in Maryland
that were better than my college when I went to A&T. And I don't mean to talk bad about my school, but put so much more into those schools.
It's not even that they,
sorry, me understanding what you gotta say.
Yeah, I was about to say, so there's one thing about, they put so much in these schools, but it's also right. Like we have to understand like the systemic ways that schools are underfunded in our communities, right? One, I think the system of, schools being majorly funded by property tax. And then when you think about like the systemic ways of like how they restructure school districts for this very reason, to keep most money from businesses and so forth and these white districts, right? So there's this systemic larger effort to make sure that more money is directed into white schools, suburban areas where white people largely populate, right? Versus like, urban areas. That's done on like these larger scales, like politically, economically, all the things, right? We also have to think about that what's at the surface that we can see can appear to be, oh, they're putting all these resources there. But like we have to remember these things are deeply entrenched in systemic racism that is, it like pervades all institutions, from education to finances to whatever, right? And when we think about also too, like if we're talking about property tax, we also think about how Black people, and they've shown studies, right? Like that Black people, some have had to get white people to pose as them and change the pictures in their homes to garner a higher buying price than what they would have got if the people seeking to buy the home think they're Black, right? So there's like this deeper level of devaluing Black people and how that transcends, just this like, oh, they're funding schools, we're not funding schools. No. Like there's this like, it's entrenched in systems where we're not paid the same, whether it's through employment, whether it's through our own assets, such as house buying, but there's this like devaluation of Blackness. So I think, right, like there's a lot of things going on and
it is. It definitely is. I was saying like at the end of the conversation, I was feeling so torn. I'm so sad because having my experience in Connecticut to being here in North Carolina, where our schools, I think North Carolina is like the 44th or 45th in the list at the bottom. And well, Connecticut's like in the top three, top 3 to 5 and for public schools. And I think about the education, the quality of education I received. And I'm looking at my children and where they are in their just educational journey and seeing the skills that they're lacking as they're in 3rd grade or as my daughter's in 8th grade. It's so discouraging. It's so unfair because I'm having to spend so much time in it, like trying to teach them the things like, okay, these are the basics. We got to work on penmanship. We got to work on spelling. We got to work on grammar. We've got to work on reading comprehension. We've got to work on even just our vocabulary and learning definitions of words. And even I think what I mentioned, I was telling you, I had my daughter start learning how to use a dictionary recently. She thought she was going to die. And I'm like, oh my gosh. And wow, I'm so grateful to have had that experience. It's like this win or lose where I get the great education, but I struggled with my identity for years. It's so fucked up. Like people, you don't have your Black card. I still don't think I have my Black card because I don't know shit about like our Black classic movies. There's so much music I don't know. I still listen to a lot of pop and rock music, and it's like I grew up so different, and I didn't learn that. So I was even having this conversation, and it might be funny. You might enjoy it if you go back and listen to it. I was asking my cousins and my friends, how did we learn our Blackness? Me and my cousin and one of the other girls who was on the panel, we went to HBCUs. Like, we got to get the furthest way in a completely different environment, please. But fortunately, like for one of my best friends who was on, her dad was like a freedom rider. He was like deep in the civil rights movement and met Martin Luther King. I mean, just did a lot. And so he raised them with this. And I said, oh man, I felt deprived because, and then my parents were like, we didn't realize we didn't teach you this stuff, but we didn't really know a lot of it. And I'm like, it wasn't to offend you, Mom, but y'all didn't teach us a lot. So, I mean, I was rocking baby blue contacts in school and the blonde little streaks. And because you want to fit in, you just want to be accepted so bad. But goddamn, I got a good ass education, right? But I suffered, and I'm still suffering and to a capacity like where I still am working to figure like, dang, I missed out because I don't know this. People are cracking jokes and like, oh, this is from the 5 Heartbeats. You don't know that? I'm like, I've never seen it, man. But I almost still feel like I give that up for my kids to get that kind of education because they don't understand how much more beneficial it's going to be to them when I feel like they are literally just trying to get these kids out of school and then they're not going to have no fucking skills. They're not going to know how to do shit. And then they're going to have to resort to a life of crime or prostitution, drug dealing, gang banging and shit just to eat. And then they're looking at the possibilities end up in jails and prisons. It's like, this is intentional. So you can kind of see what's happening. What can I do as a parent? I am like, oh my God. I just want better for them, but they're not going to get it here. Not in the public school systems. And like you said, we already see how the system is set up for them.
Yeah. It's a really, so I connected and resonated with a lot. There's a few points that you made that I really was like, so for one, I just want to say that, I also had, 2 experiences. Living in Queens, I had like a very cultural educational experience. Like all my teachers from kindergarten, 3rd grade, they were all Black women. The school was Black. I don't remember seeing anybody white in that school. And then in Maryland, right, like then I had only one Black teacher my whole time in Maryland from 4th grade to 10th grade, right? Or to 11th grade. Miss Gurley, she will forever live in my heart. But like,
you gotta remember her name now.
Right. No, I love Miss Gurley, love her down. But I say all that, and she was like the home ec teacher. I say all that to say, when I talk about my research or I talk about like the systemic, oppression and sending our children to these spaces, I know there is not a one-off answer. It is a very nuanced, complex thing. I do know that, like, yes, white spaces, like I grew up in white spaces as well. They can lead to this like dispossession, this disembodied feeling of being a belonging, right?
Yeah.
I'm not saying that is, exclusive, but I'm saying that can be a thing. I'm saying that we as a Black community, we have to figure out what is going to work for our children. And also recognizing we have to be conscious and intentional about the ways that we also, give them those experiences that root them to self, right? Because if you don't know thyself, you don't know anything, right? So that's one thing that I wanted to say. So I'm not by all means saying like, oh, like, it's a very easy fix that we need to just take ourselves to, our own schools and create this society that we're to ourselves. I'm not saying that by any means, right? Like, I'm just trying to, in my own lane, figure out what that looks like for us through telling our stories of our lived experiences to create a better story for our children and the next generations. Something you said about, or when are you Black enough, right? Like I'm like, Lord help. So I too I'm not well versed on all the things of what they deem to be Black culture, but I also believe that Black culture is more than the things that we tend to like grab on or hold on to first, right? Because Jimi Hendrix would have something to say about, like, oh, I felt like as a Black girl, I'm listening to rock, as though that is not, like, as though we didn't make rock, or like any of the music that we can talk about, any of these genres didn't come through us first, right? But I think that like there's this generalization or a pathologized way of looking at, or we can look at Blackness, and Blackness is, we're not a monolith. Like, if Blackness, what makes us Black is just us showing up in our very essence, who we are. And that's it, right? Like, it doesn't matter if we're coming with anime or all the things that we, society may tell us are non-Black or whatever, or that you're acting this other way, right? Your essence just of you showing up, that is you Black enough. We are always Black enough.
Thank you so much.
Yes.
I'm going to hold that dear to my heart because, I hate when they say it. It's just like, and I've just kind of learned to just accept it. I don't have my Black card. Leave me out of this conversation.
No.
I have nothing to contribute here. And so,
step back in the conversation, because Blackness is varied. Blackness is beautiful, and it's so beautiful because we are, right? Like, we're multifaceted. We all have so many different lived experiences. And I think there's harm when we try to, generalize it and package it in this way that a lot of times is rooted in deficit and struggle, right? Like, oh, you're not black enough if you can do this, or like eat ramen, or eat cereal with water, or like whatever.
Sugar
whatever
sandwiches.
the thing,
I know. Like I've never
like
experienced it.
whatever the things are that they tend to root to blackness. Because like, listen, if we understood just dynasties of, you know, where we come from in Africa, and not to say there's like that was a monolith too, because they were also, right, like, you know, different levels of society and all the things. But I say all that to say, right, we don't own struggle. That's not ours, baby. Like,
Right.
we
They
may
definitely want
struggle,
us to believe
but
that.
we don't own it. Okay, baby.
Right.
I may struggle at times, but I am not struggle. And so I say all that to say we really want to be mindful of the identities that we covet and hold on to, and we lead with.
Yeah,
because I'm listen to I listen to, you know, my Duke Ellington, and I'm more of like a 60s, 70s, 80s babe. But 90s R&B, Hold Me Down, absolutely too. I'm also gonna listen to some other, like, you know, artists that may not fall in the folds of that, right? Like some other white artists or Latin artists, because girl, throw on a salsa and I'm gonna try a two-step, okay?
I know that.
Whatever it is, right? Like, you know, whether it's music, whatever it is. And I think that these really marginalizing ways of saying that blackness does this but not that, that's very limiting to us, and it really takes on the stance of white supremacy is rooted in that, as though we have to be boxed in, and we look like this. No. So baby, step in.
This
step
is why
on.
I enjoy. This is like therapy. On. Yes.
Step on, baby.
I'm going to hold dear to that, and, you know, try to channel that a little bit better, because again, it's like, I think I still kind of beat myself down. Like, I don't know what the hell these people are talking about. And it's okay. I don't have to know it all.
Their experience
so many other things that I do know. So that is,
and their experience is theirs, and yours is yours, and it's all black. Every experience is black that the black person is experiencing. That's it. Yes. I'll catch that. I like that. You know, every experience is black that a black person is experiencing. There we go. Catch it.
Very true. So, you know, I think what I want to try to do, knowing like where I'm at, kind of my journey in life, and working to accept my blackness and all that stuff, it's like I want to be able to pass more on to my kids, seeing that, again, my parents unfortunately didn't really have some of the history and the knowledge of like African history or even African American history to really pass on to us. So the little we got was those couple of days in school, Black History Month or whatever, you know what I mean? I'm like, I gotta figure out a way to really teach my kids more. I want them to be more confident in themselves. So even like with my daughter, I've never put like perms in her hair. You're gonna learn your natural hair. So I'm like, even that's amazing, because I permed my hair through probably like my mid-20s, and I'm like, oh my hair's so much healthier now that I'm like, I could have done away with this so much long ago. But it's like there's so many things I wish I can teach them, but how I'm still learning. I still don't really know for myself.
Yeah, we're learning, right? Like life is a learning experience, and you don't know what you don't know, right? Like you don't know what you don't know, because girl, I was a part of the I was a perm girly too. And like, you know, we were talking earlier about my hair, right?
Yes, like, I said, you look so cute with your hair like this. I wish I could do it, but I said I don't have the head for it, baby.
Girl, I didn't know I had the head for it either. Okay, it was born of like strife and, like, you know, just having a Britney moment, right? Like I just wanted to, you know, just be done with it. Actually, someone told me that hair holds energy, and I was coming out of a period I just wanted to release, right? Like, and that just felt very spiritual for me. And so, girl, I'm glad that it all worked out for my good, because, girl, I didn't know what this head was looking like. I didn't know what I was working with. I didn't know if I had some dinks underneath all of my crown, you know.
Oh, that's what I'm worried about. Like, I probably have crater head back here or something. I don't know. I'm scared to take the chance.
No. Listen. So listen. This was a whole leap of faith. This was stepping out on my whole chest and just hoping that it all
works for you, baby, because you look really, really cute with that. I love this.
Thank you. Yeah, this came in stages too. I had, you know, permed hair to the middle of my back. And, you know, the Black community, you cutting your hair, like, hair is so, like, you know, it's so revered in our community, which it would be interesting to understand where that comes from, but we know where it comes from. But like, you know, really doing more of like that dissecting. But yeah, like I was like, I'm not my hair. And I think that was also my own rebuff of like when I started to grow my hair out natural, I had an afro. I think that was like my rebuff of like, just dealing in a world that tries to box in blackness, that tries to say, like, your beauty is based off of like these standard. That first came in that transition because I went from long hair to then I had an afro, and then I kept that for a few years, and then we're here. I've had this since like 2019. So
I was just about to ask, how long have you been doing it? See, good for you. I like that. See, I think I took a moment this past summer where I was just like, well, I got some braids and it was so tight. I feel like my edges were coming out. So I'm like, let me get my hair
I was
a
there
braid.
too.
And I'm like, oh my gosh. So I was like, let me just rock my afro. And when I felt amazing doing that because for so long it was hard to do. And I was like, let me start posting my pictures and my profile pictures and all that stuff. Like, oh my gosh. And the reception was awesome. Like I'd go places and like, oh my gosh, your afro's so beautiful. Black people, white people,
Love
whoever.
it.
And I was like, this is so dope. So even my first few episodes I did with my podcast, I think I had my afro all wild and stuff. And I was like,
beautiful.
You know what? I love this. I love at least being in that space where I'm not like almost embarrassed. Like I would have never in school. You know what I mean? Like I would have never had my afro going. So even now, like my daughter wore her afro the other day. And I was like, wow, look at you. So I'm so glad she at least has that.
Amen.
Starting that in her really young. But I said we're gonna take this as I'm learning. I'm gonna try to pull these kids in with me. Like
amen, and that's what it's about.
Yeah, seriously. Like maybe I'll let them see the black movies so they don't feel like I've been left out. But
they're not left out.
Growing up,
right on time.
My parents we didn't get to watch a lot of TV, so that was that kind of gets us too. Where it's like I don't know some of these shows. I never grew up watching Martin. What's that like?
Hilarious, by the way. But yes. So
I'm not that bad with the kids, but. Just trying to filter some of this stuff because some of it is, especially this new TV. It's like I'd rather y'all watch some of the older stuff because this new shit is the worst. Lord, it's awful.
It's terrible. It's terrible. It's funny because like as you're saying all of that, like I'm thinking about like like hairstyles, right? Because I was a braid girly too, a twist girly. I had my long twist down my back and my braids down my. There is nothing inherently wrong with doing any of those styles. Whether you want to perm your hair. There are it can have health outcomes with fibroids and all the things, right? Yeah. So just be aware of those things. But there's nothing inherently wrong with like having these braids or however you want to do it that is not, your natural afro or your natural state, right? It's whatever you want to do. But I think that you made the key distinction of when it's you're like scared to do it and it's rooted in like a lack of self-love and rooted in insecurity and those things. That is when we need to like challenge ourselves because there's something there for us to grow and blossom under, recognizing what is the motivation of why I'm doing this. If it's like just because I want to look cute, but it's like also I could I fully embrace and I love also my natural state, then beautiful, do all the things, right? But if it's like like I don't feel beautiful in my natural state and I couldn't wear my hair however, or that's something to look at. Even if you're not still going to do it, it's something to do that work to unpack and work through.
There's a lot of validity to that because I know for sure I just felt like I don't look attractive with this afro. It's all matted down and it looks all dry but even learning how to work with it. And my girlfriend who's a co-host for my show, she's a hairstylist and a teacher, a natural hair care teacher.
I need to come holler at her.
Honey, she's the bomb. And when I tell you, so she's like, use this product, do this. And I'm like, oh my God, I didn't even know it could look like this. It's shiny and my curls are defined. I'm like, I have a curl pattern? Oh shit.
And that's what it is, right? Like, it's like when you don't know how to work with it, right? And like, so often we have we're like, okay, well, like, then I got to do something.
Let me try this. Let me try that.
And it's very true because, girl, like, I wasn't one of those kids who liked to do hair growing up. One of those, like, I didn't like to play with my Barbie or not my Barbie, my, a doll and do hair. I was never that type. I didn't like to do my own hair. When I had my afro, I didn't know what I was doing, girl. And I wasn't even trying to figure it out. And so that also, I think that led to this on top of all the energies and on top of the Britney moment. Like, like there was a lot of things, right? Like that was just, compounded with why this had to come to be because it's a lot of work.
And it is a lot of work.
Listen, and
I know
so
I
love that.
Wigs cutting up my forehead and lace and all this stuff, and it was like, this ain't comfortable. It's itching. I'm putting my fingers all underneath the lace, scratching. So this just feels better doing the protective styles, and the crochets or whatever the case is.
Yeah, and so the education behind it is beautiful.
It is, yeah. And I think that's more, just having these conversations and helping people to understand, like, I felt so much more confident being able to wear my hair like that and just like walk around not embarrassed, like, oh no, don't see me, but like really like this is me. It is what it is. You either fuck with it or you don't.
I
And
know
I'm gonna
that's
go
right.
ahead and embrace that. And so
Yeah.
now I love being able to have my moments where I'm in between, like, yeah, I don't care, I ain't doing nothing. Put a headband, keep it
Right.
moving. And it's just this is me now. So I think it kind of
Yes.
took for me to go through, the challenges and things I've experienced in this last year. And I'm sure we'll get into that in a little bit. Coming out of a situation like my marriage and my relationship and really working like rebuild myself and find myself. Like, let me do all the things I felt like I couldn't do before, right? And so that was for me, it was like another like check that off my list. I did that, I conquered that, I'm
Mm.
straight. What we trying next? You know what I mean? So kind of
Yeah.
helping myself to like reestablish like or I guess my definitions of beauty and not feeling like I've got to wear the lace fronts and I've got to have all the locks here and the silk presses and they only last for a day because I sweat all the time. Or it's like,
And that
no, let's
humidity.
I was mad as hell. Like, I walked out of there looking amazing, baby. By that night, it's back to a fro damn near. Like, okay, well, it was nice while it lasted, but just finding what works for you. And so that's why I really kind of wanted to create this show and open it up to bring on guests who again can share these experiences. I think it's so important for us to be able to hear these stories and understand like, there are millions of people who have gone through what we've gone through. Like I said, even when I spoke to my new friend over in Africa, and hearing what she's going through. Like, she's never stepped foot over here in the States. They're dealing with so many things that we're dealing with here too. And it's like, even in relationships and dating. And I'm like, I can't wait to have that conversation.
Oh, before you go on, because you
Oh,
said
sure.
something about your ex, and maybe I should let you answer your next question,
Oh,
but it
yeah.
just also, I wanted to just say that sometimes, right, relationships, we have to think about the relationships that we're in that can leverage or purposely use those personal insecurities against us to keep us in that space, in that
Yes.
cycle.
Mm-hmm.
Or relationships that we don't feel safe in to present our natural selves and keep that,
Yeah.
that sort of thing going. So that was something that I thought of when you said how, even being with your ex, right? Like like we're just sort of,
Yeah. And that
hesitant.
makes perfect sense because you know what? And I know I mentioned how my ex was a compulsive cheater. And so over the years, I've caught the man with dozens of women, not always, involved with them sexually, but even just the sneaking around, the secret communications and texts
Hmm.
and things like that. And these women were always the lace front wearing girls and the long braids down to their
Mm.
ankles. And I have those moments where I'd want to rock my fro, and I would over time, but I just would feel so like less than, like, let me make myself look like these women because this is what it looks like
Hmm.
he's actually attracted to. Let me try to
Yeah.
conform to this. Let me try to make, oh, he seems to keep liking these girls with the orange and blonde hair. Let me try that. And that's when I was like, this is so fucked up because I don't think people understand the pressure you'll put yourself under. Your partner is doing these kind of things to you. And again, it's another form of manipulation. But,
Yeah.
and like you said, control. I'm so glad that I don't care anymore. Like,
Amen.
I don't think I'll ever spend that kind of energy looking and dissecting. Okay, she dresses like this. Okay, I'm going to do this.
Yeah.
Remember that guy Derek Jackson and how
Yes.
he was like embarrassing his wife and how
Yes.
I remember her
She had
having
the
an interview,
helmet of salvation. She was in,
honey.
yeah, because she
And I
had to have the
remember,
helmet to deal with him.
yeah, I mean, I feel like I was dealing with that times 10. Mine wasn't
Mm.
this public kind of figure, but I remember her saying like how she would try to change her style up to like dress like
Mm.
these girls, to talk like to act like them in whatever, whatever way it seems like he's attracted to. And I think that's so fucked up. So I just
Yeah.
love being able to have these kind of conversations and talk to people who come to me with their stories. And I'm like, listen, if this man has got you doing this, changing how you eat, changing how you function, changing how you this, how you can't get your work done, you can't focus on you, you got to put all your everything into his basket. That's not right. You don't realize, because I think this happens so like insidiously. You don't even until you like look up and it's 5 years past, 10 years past. You're like, I've done this so many times trying like, let me find a hairstyle like this. Let me try to do this to try to keep him at home. And it just never worked. So, like I said,
Yeah.
going forward, I'm in this space where, like, I will never, you better come and love every bit of this here or get the hell up on out of my energy, because I'll never spend that kind of time and energy trying to make myself something who I'm not. Like, I'm so much more comfortable now. I haven't wore a lace front in over year and a half at this point. I'm like, I don't think I'll ever wear those again because it wasn't even for me. It's just I saw this is what he seemed to like, so I wanted to try to be that for him. But it's
Yeah. I
crazy.
mean, I think I think that's such a beautiful place for ourselves because we can find ourselves in situations or with people, right, that really highlight, they can capitalize off of our insecurities. But that's also the beautiful place of where we have to ask ourselves, what is it that keeps me in this cycle? It becomes this form of self-torture, right? Like, why am I torturing myself? Why have I made this space comfortable? Even though it feels uncomfortable, I've also made it comfortable, right? Like, why have I normalized this? What in me is holding hostage to staying here in this space that I am fearful of moving beyond it? Like,
I think that's what
right?
it is
Like,
a lot of times, right? Just the
yeah.
fear. Remember just having so many moments like, I've got to say, I don't want to be a single mother. I don't want to have the title of divorcee, failed marriage. I refuse. I do not want it. So I sat and suffered through 19 years of bullshit. Like, you can't imagine. And it's like, looking at it now, like, okay, once I was able to walk away, it's like, what the fuck was I so afraid of? What was I so afraid of? I was
So give
already
yourself
doing
grace.
everything. I was already a single mom. I was already holding everything down. Everything happened through me. I was the leader, the breadwinner, the provider, everything. What was I so afraid of? And I think it was afraid of just kind of taking that leap and changing the routine. You get so comfortable, like you said, in your routine and how we function, how we communicate. Okay, he's going to go do this. We'll fight for a couple days. We'll kiss, make back up. It was so difficult because even when I wanted to leave, it still took me 2 weeks to not play that game. We were talking back, chilling, and how's your day? And I'm still the whole time like, what am I doing? I don't want to do this no more. I'm tired of doing the same freaking game. I'm tired, right? There's certain things that I feel like aligned and happened in my world. Like, I had to go to a funeral. When I went to my uncle's funeral, it was the first time I'd been to church in years. Only time I seem to have gone to church was for a funeral or a wedding. But this funeral, my cousin preached. I didn't even know my cousin was a preacher. And when I tell you, he said everything I needed to hear that day. It was amazing. And so I think for me, that's when I finally feel like because I wasn't even going to go to the service initially. I had to work, but I worked on the road while we were driving out there for the couple hours. It was like, oh my gosh, this was perfect, like divine timing, right? To have heard what I need to hear. It was like, oh, I walked out of there and the door was closed. And I walked out of it, and that was on the drive home was when I told my mother, hey, Mom, guess what? Me and the kids about to move in because I'm leaving this man. And she could have drove off the damn side of the road, like in shock. Like, she could not believe what I was sharing with her because for so many years, he was just a charming, wonderful, awesome guy. You know, everyone in my family, not my friends knew a little bit more than most,
because
but you know, maybe we be letting them know a little something. But my family always held him in such high regard, and he's such a good dad. He's always
we're gonna protect some things. We'll protect someone else before sometimes we protect
ourselves, and we protect our heart and our minds. And so I'm like,
that's where on this spiritual dimension, somewhere within, and this is not to excuse his behavior. This is completely separate of that. But sometimes we can, for whatever reason, stay in a place, and it's so fear is that is like I said that first, but it's even beyond that like we will find situations to keep that going. And I'm gonna say it yes, but I'm gonna say it in a different way. We'll find situations, we'll find people, and we'll find situations to sort of hold ourselves to how we view ourselves, right? Like to confirm to ourselves, like, see, I told you you're this. So look at this. This situation that you're in proves that you're this, right? But it's about self, right? Like that we ourselves, because of that view of how we may view ourselves, we'll look for subconsciously and attract subconsciously situations that will help confirm what we say is right about ourselves.
I can see that 100%. You'll go out almost looking for the trouble, right? It's like, oh, you go seek it, you'll find.
Yeah.
So I would find myself in these moments where it's like, things seem too quiet. Things seem good. Let me go through his phone. Now, I know. And I'm going through that whole fucked up cycle again where I'm having anxiety attacks. I can't sleep at night. This is what I know. And again,
this is what I know.
It's somehow it's comfortable. This is
what
us.
I know.
So if we're not doing this, we don't feel right.
We don't feel right, and not for nothing. This is what I know, and this is what I think my self-worth is. This is what
Yep.
I have valued my self-worth to be. And so I have to keep it here because I have a low evaluation of my self-worth. And because I have that, I am going to look for situations or create situations or stay in situations that help to confirm this evidence, or serve as evidence for my own way of thinking about myself, that I am of this low self-worth, and I need this to confirm that I am of this low self-worth.
Wow. That's impactful. Seriously. And I hope when we put this out that somebody listens to that and understands it's okay to break that cycle. It's
Yeah.
okay to seek out some help. I had to hear it from some outside person to say, hey, no offense, but this sounds fucking crazy. How do you think you're going to heal from the person who's cutting you every day? How do you get better? How do you build yourself up and start working on these goals when you're consumed by helping them get this off the ground, or you're consumed by trying to do this and make him happy? You know, I don't want to address this because I don't want to change create the tension and the turmoil in our house. If things are peaceful, they've only been peaceful for 3-4 days, and I don't want to ruin that. You know what I mean? So it's like, it's really difficult to get to that space mentally to be able to like choose you. You know, we hear that a lot. Like, I finally was able to choose me, and I'm trying to be really the example to people of like, yo, when you choose yourself, oh my God, you have no idea how good life can actually be and feel. Like, I sleep so good not wondering, is he over there lying? Is he sneaking? Is he cheating? Is he texting? Is he trying to sleep with his coworker today? Is he trying? It's just, wow, to free yourself of that, to free yourself. And now I don't have those thoughts all day where I'm like, I actually can think about my shit. I can actually focus on helping my kids do this, and I can show up a little bit more for this, or for my friends or my it's so amazing. And so I think being able to get through that fear, because that's what held me back for all of these years. Like, I knew I shouldn't have had kids with him. I knew I shouldn't have walked in the aisle with him, but it was just and not even just the fear. You'll get yourself like caught up in the fantasy, right? Sometimes these people can create this fantasy for you. Well, we're going to be this. We're going to be this power couple. We're going to have the picket fence in the White House and the dog. We're going to have, knowing damn well nothing about your situation is helping you get there. He's not leading you there. You're not putting in the work to get there. He's just feeding you a bunch of words, empty ass words. And so that's something I'm constantly pushing to people. Like, sometimes you do have to take a step back. Sometimes separation can do some people some good. Go and seek a therapy or a coach or a life coach or something, somebody to help you. Not your friends, not your sister, your mom, somebody on the outside who's going to give it to you really raw. Because I think we're surrounded by a lot of like yes men and people who share, who
not
tell
me.
you what they think.
My friends know. They know.
Mine's were. I had a couple of friends who would give me like my co-host of the show. She was like, listen, every time we talk, you telling me the same shit, and I'm getting tired. Like, what you gonna do about this? And I'm like,
like I'm that friend. If I'm being honest, like, I'm the friend.
I love it. Please continue
not even
doing
what you're gonna do about it, but like the idea. I'm gonna point some stuff out. Like, so for example, as you were talking, you're like, he was giving you a fantasy, but I would push back to say, why did you want to believe in the fantasy, right? Like, because a lot of these things are rooted in ourselves. Like, other people serve as mirrors, right? So I'm often the one to try and reflect the mirror back to you. What about you? What in you, right, was looking for that fantasy? Why did someone need to give you a fantasy? What was devoid of yourself? What were you missing that you were looking for someone else to give you?
Oh, missing everything. Missing the confidence, missing the self-esteem, just missing so much, but also like and maybe creating the fantasy for myself, not even necessarily him, but it was like we were mimicking my parents. So it's like, oh, my parents met when they were 18, 19, got married really quick, had us, built a beautiful life together, but they have a completely different dynamic to their relationship. And we tried to almost force that. And so he had a common thing, we're going to be just like your parents. We'll be just like your parents. So I wanted to believe this. So I started creating this image in my mind. We're going to be like this too. Knowing very early on we were nothing like them.
Yeah. And so I didn't know you were going to answer. It was like one of those things, like, But
Oh no, you're
I'm
not
gonna
allowed to
say,
talk.
no, I love it. No, I wasn't saying it in that way, but I was saying like it was like one of those things to mull over, like sit with. But
Yeah.
I also think that there's something to be said, right? Like, you know, again, because I'm always gonna come back to the root of what did, and I'm that friend. Why did you, what about your parents' relationship did you want? Did you feel like you were lacking a love? Were you like, you know what I mean? Like it always comes from something within
Mm-hmm.
ourselves that we are seeking. And
Yeah.
that is what we attract, right? That becomes a
Ugh.
mirror to hold up to see what we were seeking. And so the best place to start is like with ourselves, because I guarantee you got tired of being tired. I guarantee, right? Like you got tired of having that low self-worth. And so it was, it, whether it was him, anyone else, right? It was you, your spirit of like, no, 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 no. Like
Yeah.
this here, I reject this pattern that I have I've given myself. I reject this because I want something new. Like staying in
Yeah.
this to keep confirming to me that my self-worth is low. I no longer I no longer sit here, no longer lives with me. And so I need more. And so I
Yeah.
guarantee that that was part of why,
Mm-hmm.
because if he was cheating for all those times and for all those years, there
Yep.
had to be something more within you, not a him
Yeah.
thing, because he didn't change. He was very
No.
consistently that. He was
Foul. Right.
consistently foul. He was consistently a mess, right?
Yeah.
So that wasn't the thing that changed. Something within you changed. And
Yeah.
that's where the healing power lives. What
Oh yeah.
within you?
Absolutely. I love that. You know, I think it was I was introduced through a friend to tarot, to be honest. And when I started like listening to it actually she told me she was doing it. She started a YouTube channel. I would listen to some of her readings and I they just at the time wasn't really like sticking with me. But I remember going through a situation where I found him cheating again. Things felt like they were really good with us at that time. So it was just such another like devastating blow. Like, oh my God, we're here again. And I remember going on YouTube and it was so weird because while I never really looked into tarot on my own, tarot reader, her name's like Patrizia. She's like from Canada, and
Okay.
older white lady. Her message was so freaky to me, like how you had the experience with the psychic medium. It was so crazy to me how I remember there was this one particular card. I'm trying to explain the picture. It was like someone leaned like a image of a girl leaned up against the tree, right, with like her knees folded into her chest, like holding her knees, and it was like some like side boobage, which is kind of funny, but it was like some
Hmm.
side boobage kind of on the side because she was just like nude in this picture
Okay.
on the
I'm
card
listen.
on the tarot card.
I'm in it. Okay.
And the tarot reader said, like, this message is like I'm pulling this message from someone's ancestors or someone's like spirit guide or angels who are watching over you. It's something about the breast right here. This person may have had some kind of breast cancer or something like that. But this they're with you very heavy. And I had a aunt named Aunt Birdie. And she was like the only kind of grandmother figure I
Oh,
had on my daddy's side of the family.
oh, I
But to
got
take it even a
chills.
step further, right? So the way the card was pictured, I believe the girl's probably leaning on the right side of the card, so that means her left side of her breast would have been exposed in the particular card. And I have a mole on my left breast right here. And she
Mm.
said, "Look at this card. Whoever's sitting here, if you sat in this position, you have a mole or something right here." And I remember it was like, what is this? What is she? That's crazy. And I had this song from my aunt Birdie. She passed away when I was 11. And I remember the day of her funeral, it was raining real bad. And Casey and JoJo, All My Life, was heavy rotation on the radio. So I always associate that song with my aunt. And after that video, I put on the playlist. What's the first song came on Pandora? And it
I
was so
know.
like, oh my goodness. So I
Oh.
that's what started that experience. That one experience is what started making me believe, like, you know what? Some people do have these abilities. Sometimes it's not even like you have to be face to face with them. I think there's so much power in social media and the internet and just being able to connect with so many people and beautiful minds. But she, in that one message, and it was a long message, it was like 45, 50 minutes, but I listened to the whole thing. And in that message is when, and this had to have been like, this was this was like 4 years prior to me leaving. So about 5 years ago is when I first heard this message. And in that message is when this woman was speaking out about so many things that were happening in my life. And she's using terms that I had never really heard, like codependency and
Mm.
triangulation and this and this. And I'm like, what is this? And I remember like, I'm going to have to look into it. And so I started doing my own research on like, what is this? And it just like all the pieces started coming together. And because I had been taken out of the church for years with this man, I don't know if he's atheist or what, but he just didn't really have a very strong spiritual foundation. And so we were confused as hell. My kids were confused, and I'd try to pray with them secretly or say grace over their food. And he'd be like, why are you praying to God and praising God for this food? I'm the one who's out here busting my ass for getting this paycheck. I went and bought these groceries. I had to stand in the grocery store. You need to be praying to me, you know? And it was this craziness, like, I am seeking something so deep. Like, I need something. And so honestly, the tarot kind of helped me get back into praying more and being stronger and like working on meditation and working on just setting goals and writing things down and working on manifestation. Like, I never really thought about that. Even like The Secret, I had the book for years, like, what's this about? Let me finally read this book. Wow. And so it was so crazy how many things started happening. Even my modeling experience, like, I know I manifested that, because when I left him, I started working out so hard. And I remember just having these moments looking in the mirror like, bitch, you need to be modeling for somebody.
I know
right?
that.
Because it was so hard for so long to even look in the mirror. I went years, didn't even take pictures, honey. I don't even have pictures of me at my heaviest weight because I refuse to be on a camera. I have a couple I could find, but I'm like, dang, I'm so mad I don't have pictures to show like from here. But it was like, oh my goodness. So the things started happening once I left. Everything started to unfold and happen in the most amazing way. Like, yo, I can't believe I'm where I'm at right now. I can't believe I'm doing this podcast. I can't believe I'm sharing my story. Even at my company Christmas party, I had a lady come to me and tell me that she's been watching my podcast. She's been engaged for several years. And she's like, look at my hand, girl. And I'm like, there's no ring. She had the prettiest ring. She's like, I called it off. Like, so many things you're talking about, the emotional abuse. Like, why am I going to lock this down and marry the... And I was so taken aback, like, just the people who I don't even think are watching are going through so many of the same situations. And sometimes it's like, it just takes hearing this person like, damn, you know, what she's saying is, this is exactly what I'm dealing with here. Why am I going to do this? And sometimes, like I said, it takes somebody outside of your circle, outside of your, you know what I mean, your little network, to hit you with some truth. Those situations and how they all started to align, I just can't believe I'm here. I can't believe I'm where I'm at, but I'm so grateful. So it's like, it's as crazy it is. People are like, would you go through it again? Yes, because it got me here.
Oh, amen. And everything is for divine purpose.
Oh my
and
goodness.
You know, so first of all, let me just say this. When you mentioned your Aunt Bertie, the first time when you said like your Aunt Bertie, I got chills. So something about me, I'm spiritually gifted. I don't know if I've shared this with you.
Briefly, yeah.
Yeah, I'm spiritually gifted. One of the responses when I know something it's divinely true, I get chills. So just so you know, that was your Aunt Bertie.
I love that. Oh my God, I love it.
She said yes, baby. So that's one thing. And then the second thing, when you said like you left, that's when you decided to leave the space, right? I was given, right, like, not only just leave the physical space, that's where you decided to leave the spiritual space of where you were at, of like, I'm patterning everything around this low worth, this low self-worth. And you left that space, and that made all the difference. So the physical, you leaving the physical space, that was like the physical earthly manifestation of what you spiritually decided you wanted no longer, that you were evicting, that you were leaving.
Wow. I love
and
that.
that's how it all moved.
That's so freaking awesome. I'm telling you, it's beautiful to be here. I honestly thought I was going to spend the rest of my life in that.
Amen.
I thought I was going to be there the rest of my life. Like, oh, I'm going to grow old. Because we have those examples around us. Some relatives or long-term family friends who you see and you're like,
and they're miserable.
This shit?
Miserable, and they be miserable.
Yes. But you know, something else I see too, which worries me for my ex's sake, is that the examples of men in my life who were not good, who did not do right, who, you know, were out compulsively cheating on their families or making babies on the outside, they passed so suddenly, so young. We don't know how much time we have here. So my whole thing is, I don't think God's going to reward people who are just causing destruction, breaking up homes, putting their kids and families and wives through hell. And so it's like, I've always prayed that I hope he gets it together, you know? But I had a situation recently where, and I'll share this briefly. After me and him separated, he started dating a young girl. and she reached out to me a few weeks ago. And the girl shared with me, meeting that man was the worst thing that ever happened in my life. It broke my heart for her because I knew whoever he's dealing with after me, they're going through hell. They're gonna go through hell with him because he ain't take a minute to heal, ain't take a minute to learn. I said, everything he was doing to me, I know he's probably doing it tenfold now to the next woman. That girl confirmed so many details.
I'm like, actually,
I feel bad for him. If this wasn't the rock bottom, the breakthrough to help you figure out, like, I've got to be better. I got to be better as a man or for my kids, then damn, it's going to really take some shit. Because if you haven't gotten it through this, like, this changed my life. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, everyone else changed my life. But I realized everybody, they're not at the same space. So,
hi and hello.
But it was just awesome to confirm, like, everything I suspected is exactly what's happening.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. It does feel good to be like, okay, I knew I was right?
I knew I was right.
But yeah, you hit it, that everyone's rock bottom is different. Everyone's rock bottom. He could be at the top of his ceiling still. Okay. We don't know, right? But everyone has an opportunity to change. Everyone has an opportunity to, do the work and heal, right? But I will say this, there's something to be said about, and I'm talking to myself as I talk to you, the things that we encounter and why, right? And so I know you read The Secret, about vibrations, our vibrations, the frequency that we are on, and how, right, like, they are essentially magnets, right? And we tune into whatever channel that we are on, our frequency is on. And so just thinking about, again, because I'm always going to push back, it's a place for her, you, myself, because I've been here. Okay, for us, ask ourselves, what about me, what frequency am I at, that when I dial in, this is the channel that I now watch, I now engage with, I now live. It's a hard thing because I think in society we've constantly been taught to, like, see what someone else is doing.
But compare yourself and try to get to that level, try to level up on. Yeah, I'm with you.
It's like, right, that competitive, yes, exactly that, right? Like, it's always, and that competitive nature translates in all these other ways that we don't see, right? It doesn't just leave at the game or whatever we were watching with that competition. Like, competitiveness is in everything. Like, that's literally what scarcity is born out of, and scarcity is a man-made concept, right? That competition is, like, sometimes really hard for us to see ourselves, right? Like, it's very easy to, like, look to see outside of ourselves, but the best place to start is always ourselves, right? Like, asking our highest self questions, like, well, why did you, or what about this felt good, or, like, just always asking our highest self, because our highest self will answer if we open our ears, our spiritual and physical ears, and our spiritual and physical eyes. We will get, the things that we need. But so oftentimes we don't sit enough with ourselves, right? Like, we're so distracted of what's happening external to ourselves, like, well, this shouldn't have been happening, and why did they do this? But if we take time to sit with ourselves and ask ourselves those same questions, turn those accusations outward as questions for ourselves, it's powerful.
It is, but it's scary too. It's scary to sit in your thoughts, and I think that's why we got so many people battling addictions, and you just want to be numb. You just want to stay distracted by sex and partying, or just multiple women or multiple men, and it's so hard. But I think that was really critical for my healing journey as well, to be able to sit and say, you know what? I want to see what it's like to not have my phone ring for a week.
Yeah.
I want to see what it's like to be able to just have time and be able to just watch what I want to watch. Maybe do some writing in my journal. Maybe, again, just forcing myself to get back into the gym, or doing something like, I'm sitting thinking about it. Just do it. You know what I mean? And just, especially, like, I feel like my personality is I'm so used to being around people. I'm always like, I need friends. I'm not coworkers. I need to be around people. So I had to literally force myself, fall the fuck back. I'm not going to be on no dating apps. I'm not going to be doing, I'm just going to sit back in this quiet. And it helped me to learn more peace. Just, I'm actually surviving without having a conversation today. I don't need my phone chiming and all the text messages.
Right.
I'm okay.
Yeah, because, like, it's hard, and all of that noise, all the external noise, it is really hard, right?
It
And
is.
you're right that is scary. Or I think we think it's scary because it's not comfortable.
That's what it is. It's just very uncomfortable.
It's
It's
uncomfortable
very
because we're
uncomfortable.
so tuned in to the external noise, right? From the time growing up with TV, with everything. Everything is
Yeah.
outside of ourselves. Everything we're taught outside of ourselves. And
Yeah.
so it's scary because it's like the unknown. We don't know what we're gonna find. Like,
I
what am I
know.
about to find here? Like what we about to do here, right? Like it's
Right.
scary because it's unknown, but it's also scary because it's uncomfortable. It's uncomfortable because we know noise.
What they say, you got to get comfortable being uncomfortable to really see
Yeah.
changes and really try to elevate your life. And so that's something that I
Makes
hope
sense.
the listeners can take away from this, just
Yeah.
it's okay to step out of it. I mean, it's almost like, what's the worst can happen? What's because I had to start asking myself,
Because
what's the worst that can happen here if I
yeah,
leave?
that's
Okay, I have to
a
live
great
home with my parents. It sucks. Trust me, living home with my parents is not fun. I want to be able to have my own space, but I'm like, maybe this is for the better. Where
be still and know.
yes, and I'm like, you know
Yeah.
what? And it's giving me opportunity to pay off debts and stack my money and get through these programs and get my business started and do the podcast. And they've got the support and help. And hey, I got people to help give me a hand now.
Yeah.
I didn't have a hand before. I got two sets
Amen.
now. What was I so afraid of? And that's the part that I look back on and I just laugh sometimes like, bitch, you should have left 18 years ago, okay?
No, but everything
No,
all I get it though. But everything is all in its time, and I love it because like be still and know, it's such a just a profoundly powerful tool that we don't exercise enough. And that intentional silence, right? Like just make silence a conscious exercise, an intentional exercise, because there's so much there in the silence. But that going to this unknown, the best way, you hit it on the nail, the best way to take away the scaries of an unknown thing is to ask ourselves what's the worst that can happen, because it's in the space of like our brain is going to imagine every worst thing we can fathom.
I'm gonna be homeless,
right?
I'm gonna be sleeping out of my car, oh my god, just
and then really sitting with it to say, is this just a manifestation of my brain, or like is this really like what could happen, right? And when you start to like see, our brains are powerful and our brains are highly imaginative and creative, okay? It's going to come up with all the things. But when we take a moment in that sustained conscious silence to really, ask ourselves what's the worst that can happen, and it comes out nothing, right? Like then it propels us and puts us in these spaces, like how now you're back at home. Guess what? Like your mentality of like, okay, I'm going to make the best out of this has put you in the best kind of space. Because if you would have went the opposite end of like, this sucks, right? Like you would have had a sucky experience and you would have attracted more sucky experiences. But because you have this positive mindset about it, right? Like you're actually like, you know what? Like I'm gonna make the most out of it. Because of that, you're gonna attract things that are in that frequency, that are gonna give you more and more of like, okay, this is working out for my good. Okay. Right. So we get to decide what something becomes. So
absolutely. Yes.
Yeah.
That is fact right there. So this is the Hoe-busters podcast. And my signature question I always ask everybody is, tell us a time when you had to be a hoe-buster in your relationship. And sometimes I'm finding people were the hoes that had to get busted. So just whatever you're willing to share.
This is college time, Lord. This is college time. And so I was with my then boyfriend at the time, who he's very near and dear to my heart even to this day. But at that time, it was a very interesting relationship because I am in a sorority, aka, and he is an alpha. We went to different schools, and he had like a previous girlfriend who they had some, they had time, they had, it was a situation. He never made it official with them, even though they were like together officially. You get what I'm saying? Yeah. Officially, unofficially. And so, but when I came on the scene, right, he officially made me his girlfriend. And so I, now looking back as the woman as I am, but even then I think I realized too, that must have been hard, right? You with this man how many years, right? And he couldn't do that. And yet here I come like a month, 2 months and whatever, right? Like, and he's made me that, right? So wild, right? So I was up at his school, and there was this party at this club. So he didn't go or whatever, but me and my best friend who came up with me to, visit, we went out to this club and, had a good time. I didn't have my glasses at the time. Now, mind you, don't see me wearing glasses, but I wear contacts. Sis cannot see, okay? When I say cannot see, girl, bye, okay? So I didn't have my glasses, contacts at the time, but I still wanted to be cute because I wasn't going to wear them glasses, them bifocals, but I wanted to be cute. So I couldn't see, but my best friend was whispering in my ear like, oh, there go the girl over there. She watching you. She with her friends, da-da-da-da. So of course, you got to turn up and you got to twirl on the floor and you got to do all the things and whatever, right? Okay, cool. So me and my best friend, we get home, we go back to like my then boyfriend at the time, his place where we were staying, and go to sleep, whatever. He was there when we went to sleep, but like when I woke up, it was weird. Like he like woke me up and it was like 8 something in the morning. And I'm used to him being asleep when I wake up, right? And like taking some time to still wake up. This is college. Nobody wants to get up, right? But I was an early riser. Like I'm an 8, 9er. Like he was a typical college student. So I remember him, I'm still sleeping and he's like trying to wake me up. And I'm like, like, well,
what's going on here?
Rubbing my eye, like, what's going on here? Whatever. So I get up fine, like, okay. But then I start to thinking, and I said, well, this is not his typical, pattern. Why is he up at this time? So I asked him, I'm like, well, why are you up at this time? And he was like, oh, I went to go get orange juice. So I'm like, you went to go get orange juice? Where'd you go get orange juice? Like, I'm confused. Right. And he was like, you walked there? I'm like, it's just not making sense for me why he went to go get this orange juice. And he was like, yeah, I went to go get orange juice. And so my best friend, who I don't know why we were sleeping all of us in the same bed. It wasn't nothing crazy like that. Like it was just college stuff, right? Like, yeah. She was like, yeah, I heard you get up or whatever. So I'm like, heard you get up? Like I was very confused, right? Yeah. So he goes to the bathroom. So I turn to my best friend, and like at this point, I'm about to be Matlock Columbo, Jessica Lansbury. I'm about to be all of the people all in one, trying to figure out what was going on. So I'm like, you heard him get up? Like what time was this? And so I asked her so many questions that, girl, I knew like whether it was dark or light outside. Like I knew what time of the morning it must have been. All the things when he left versus when he came back. So there was a sustained period of time that meant that he couldn't have just went to the store, that you were gone for a time. So I confront him and I'm like, so you said you went to get orange juice. I'm very confused because Mia said she heard you at this time get up. So the store was like 5 minutes down the road. Like where else did you go? Like, because you just came in waking me up. So then he's like, and I'm like, what? He was like, I went to go see so-and-so. Now this is the official girl. And I'm like, excuse me? He was like, yeah, she was very like, upset and bothered seeing you at the club. And I just needed to go over there and let her know because she was crying. And like, even though I don't want to be with her and, that's not what I'm trying to do. I needed to explain it to her. I owed her that much to let her know that this is what I'm doing. I said, excuse me? Long story short, I mean, after all the things, because it went a little bit more than excuse me, right? I say all that to say that's when I busted a hoe. It was a time because that's when it really solidified my detective skills of like, no. Like I know you was up at dusk at 5:57. Okay, so what were you doing and why are you getting back at 8 o'clock about some orange juice? Okay, he said he ain't do nothing, but we don't believe these hoes. Who knows? I don't know.
Well, what did you learn out of that situation?
What did I? Honestly, I don't know if the younger me really, I don't know if I learned anything other than you can't trust these hoes. Let me see. To trust my intuition. That is what I learned. Trust my intuition because we can ignore things that tell us to go further or to pull back or whatever it is. But like our intuition always knows. So
yes. Always
trust it and go with it because we can trust something and still do the opposite. So
and
trust
you try to talk yourself out of it and make all the excuses. You gaslight yourself, right?
The gaslighting be so real. It'd be so real. So trust your intuition and go with it.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for sharing that story with us. I definitely appreciate it. All right. Well, there it is, y'all. Another wonderful episode wrapped up. And a special thanks to my new friend, Cree of Cree Speaks. I appreciate you so much for coming on today and for this fantastic conversation. Look, we hardly even had to ask questions because we just fucking flow. We just vibe, right?
We flow. We be vibing. Yes, I love it.
Me too. I really do. But thanks so much for all of you out there tuning in and watching or listening. Please make sure you take a moment to like this video. Subscribe to the podcast on YouTube. You can listen on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon, iHeartRadio, all that good stuff. And so please leave us a comment. Let us know how you like this episode. If you have any questions for me, if you have any questions for my special guest, Cree, I'll make sure to tag her social media so that you can find and connect with her because she's just beautiful. She's so insightful and so freaking smart. And so I just want to spread her all around where I can because I know she's going to be super helpful to so many of us who are going through this journey, and especially for those of you who are in need of, I say, spiritual healing, because this seems to be your girl right here, okay?
Oh, yeah, that's my gift.
Oh, yes, on another episode, I'm hoping to be able to bring you back on soon, and we can tap into that more because I definitely love that conversation. But to anybody out there, if you happen to be in the Charlotte, North Carolina area, if you want to join me even remotely for an upcoming episode, all you got to do is apply on the website. It's www.hoe-busters.com, and I will make sure to get back to you, all right? So until next time, and thank you again, Cree. I appreciate you, babe.
Oh, I appreciate you. You're beautiful. Oh, keep shining your light, boo.
I appreciate it. You please do the same, all right? All right. Bye, everybody.